I know there was a little bit of chatter on an episode I don't think I was on about Matt Ray's reflections on moving.
Oh no.
But I wanted to get a little deeper and talk about now it's been a month, less than a month
Less than
since
a
you've
month.
moved.
Yeah.
So I think there's
3
been
weeks.
enough time to reflect, and what I want to get from you are tips for like the next time anyone listening moves. Here's something that you should do that will make you happier, or not do, right? And like I usually like after that 2, 3, 4 weeks, some things start to occur to you, or they don't. I don't know what are
What's
you and the
occurred?
family thinking about? Is there something you regret doing or regret not doing?
Well, well. So far, I've tried to get fencing people to install a fence. That hasn't happened yet. I tried to get a
Mhm.
new survey done of the yard. I should have got that done. The survey
I
that
see.
came with it was over 30 years old, and I need to get my yard staked because I my house is up against government land, like park, and I can't put a fence on the government land, so I need a new survey. I haven't been
Oh,
able
so
to
you've got
get.
to know exactly where your
Yeah,
land
yeah,
is.
yeah, yeah. So that's been a problem. My roof is
What do the
leak.
Australians call survey peoples? Are they like CITES or like thread pulleys or something like that?
As far as I know, it's still just survey.
Survey
Surveyor, maybe. I don't know. I haven't seen a
surveys?
nickname for them. Everybody falls under the umbrella of tradies,
Yeah.
yeah, but which is nice.
Well, I'm surprised. Do
Um,
they not have survey as a service where you could just go out and they'll be
they
like,
do.
okay, here's the GPS code, and then you just go out and then you with your phone, you're
No,
just
no,
like,
no, no, no,
okay,
no.
I'm
I
here
live. Yeah.
that long, and you just drive a stake in it. You're like, this is it. This is my property
Well,
line.
that's the beauty of having a survey that's more than 30 years old. It doesn't have lat longs on it.
Mm. I don't even know. Like, I would like, when they come out, could you like, I would make note of how does one do a survey today? Like, is it completely analog still? Is it like, what's the,
It's got
how
to
is
be
it actually done?
it's got to be digital at this point. Like digital, probably with like sighting to get the angles right to make sure that things line up. But because and my past life as a geology student, I actually learned how to use all those survey tools. We had field courses where we like went around with the sticks and the sights, and it's slow and boring, and like it's got to be replaced with digital stuff by now. There's no reason not to.
Mm.
So anyway, I need fencing. I should have like locked that in. Fencing was bad. The inspection on the house, everything was satisfactory. There was things about like, well, water does flow through the garage and under the house, but it's not touching anything. It's whatever. And I was like, yeah, it's still a fucking flood. There's a lot of water. It's been raining nonstop for 3 weeks, so that sucks. So leaking roof, of course, because the roof was marked as
Mhm.
satisfactory. Um,
As long as you have a bucket.
well, it only happened once, but
Oh.
and then getting roofers to come out. Don't trust the guy with just a drone. He came out, flew it over. He's like $5,000. I'm like, no. At least the roofers. The roof. You got me questioning everything now, Cote. At least the roofers who came out and like went on the roof, looked at the problem. I'm more likely to trust them. They might
Mm.
still get $5,000. Um, Electricians, I've had two different electricians come out because the appliances did not work as expected. So, when you're doing that walkthrough inspection, turn on the oven and see if you can blow the fuses. That was exciting.
I see. Okay, so that's a good tactical tip is like turn on everything in the house
Yes.
and see what
Yeah.
Now,
happens.
did you have to pay for or do an inspection
Oh
and
yeah,
have an
it's my house
inspector come
now.
out and did it?
Oh, the inspection. Yes. So the
So
inspection,
is the problem the inspector or that
they're not
they
going to
didn't do
find
these
a
things?
leak that wasn't there. Like,
Okay, I agree with that. But what the oven
uh,
thing though, that seems like they would turn that on. No?
well, it lights up, and then after a minute, it's a split. It's a dual unit. The bottom one blows the fuse.
Oh, I see.
Interesting.
So yeah, I mean, it's not things you're going to catch immediately.
So wait a minute, is the lesson here than this? It's like only
Don't
you
buy an old
really-
house.
I think there's that. That's always number one. Buy new construction, although comes with a whole nother set of problems. New
Oh yeah,
construction.
yeah.
But I wonder if it's like now that I've been around and at least bought a couple homes, it's like maybe it does make sense. Like maybe you have the inspector do it, but then you come over and you do like the data inspection. Okay, I'm gonna turn on the oven for an hour. I'm gonna turn on like every light, and I'm gonna like plug in some computers and something that maybe has like a weird voltage kind of thing.
You're
I'm
gonna
talking like real world. This is like chaos monkey inspections. Right?
You're going to take a 5-minute shower.
I'm gonna we're gonna turn on all the showers simultaneously. We're gonna flush every toilet. We're gonna throw a couple things down the toilet that are just chaos monkey this whole thing. Just really test it out. Like in fact, maybe this is a new service. There's like standard inspections and then there's chaos monkey inspection. Like which do you want, right? Like and I get Brandon, another hour and I really spend my time breaking stuff.
The problem, Brandon, is you do these things and then you go back and like, here are all the things that are wrong. And they're like, are you going to buy it or not?
I don't, you know what? I almost, I would say it this way. I think of actually buying the home as almost a separate decision from like, I don't even, like, I may still buy it. I just want to know. That way, it's more like, okay, I got to fix the oven. I got to fix the roof. Like it does, like, it's almost, that's what you want to tell the owner. It's like, listen, I'm going to, like, after maybe you sign the contract, be like, okay, listen, I'm going to buy the house. It's legally binding. Everything's good. Now I want you to send me an email of all the stuff that's really broken. Right, the stuff that you know about that you've lived for a long time. Just what you said, like, yeah, you can't have both ovens running, and like, you really can't run the 2 showers simultaneously. It's like just get, like it's almost just like person to person. Just come clean. We all know this goes on. Don't have to hide anything. I'm still giving you your money. Just tell me, like, which network cables don't work. Like, which are the flaky?
See, Brandon,
Ethernet jacks. Right.
That's the other thing. My kid one of my kids last night was like, how come they didn't say anything about the hot water heater? I was like, the 87-year-old lady who lived here by herself never had to share hot water. She never had Ethernet. She didn't, for whatever reason, she didn't care that it was cold as hell. Heaters are going
no
in.
Ethernet.
There's cable and phone lines. But I'm having them pulled out and replaced with Ethernet, right?
Yeah.
So I mean, it's kind of like, well, she was living in a different era.
Well, okay. So I want to switch from the infrastructure, to the smaller things. Is there anything that you either got rid of or that you kept, and you're like, that was a dumb idea, right? Like that, like, or did you do perfectly?
That we got rid of. Yeah, I mean, I would say things that we kept for the moving process. We kept all the boxes from the previous moves. So,
whoa,
yeah, I only had to buy $80 worth of cardboard boxes, as opposed to probably like 200. But that was good. I kept all the moving boxes for like monitors and TVs. So that's always that's a pro tip right there. You should use that one. Keep your moving boxes for your computers.
Right. Our friend Charles Lowell calls this original packaging, and he's infamous for keeping the original. I think he still does this, but for having like an attic full of original packaging, just for that.
Well, but we are getting rid of some of it now, right? We're like, this TV not moving again, right?
Yeah.
These computers, they're fine. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Well, most importantly, before we get off this, Matt, did you move your box of cables? Did you have a box of cables that you had to move, or did you give up on them?
Oh, no. You forget. I've got separate boxes for different cable types. I've got the USB box.
I just want to make sure.
Box. Yeah.
Because some people would go the other way on Cote suggestions, like, don't keep all the boxes. Don't keep throw them out. But
the boxes, the cable boxes got mightier as we were moving. I was grabbing them out of people's rooms. I was like, you were hoarding cables.
Just got a serial.
We only need one cable hoarding. One hoarding. Yes,
I love it. Yes, good job.
Well, now everyone knows on this podcast that I love talking about chips, but there's a fascinating thing this week, and since you two are the chip experts, at least on this podcast, I wanted to see. I wanted to see if you have some, I don't know, some analysis of if the U.S. government, which I guess by extension is we the people, should we be owning 10% of Intel beyond what's in our index funds and any stock that we may hold?
Oh,
Well, I think let's just set it up. I guess so this all goes back to the CHIPS Act, where there was basically long story under the Pat Gelsinger area, where the U.S. government was going to give, I think, $10 billion, mostly for Intel to build some new fabs and to build chips in the United States. Okay, flash forward now, Intel's in a lot more trouble. Pat Gelsinger's now gone, and so now it seems like what they're pondering is, okay, if you want to keep the money, you need to give up some type of like 10% equity in Intel. And what I guess has changed, though, I guess the knee-jerk reaction is like, oh, that's crazy. But I guess what has changed now is that it seems like no one wants to actually use Intel's foundry. Or said another way, NVIDIA and Apple are not going to let Intel build the chips, right? Okay, so they have no customers for this this
well,
foundry.
yeah, that makes it sound like it's malicious. Like, they're not going to let them build the chips.
True.
I mean,
You're right. They've
this is
chosen-
economically,
yes.
it doesn't make sense
Absolutely right.
for them to use
Good-
Intel.
Very good correction. Capitalism is working. Intel and NVIDIA are picking the correct partner, right, to build their chips over in Taiwan. Makes perfect business sense. I think we would all make exactly the same decision. And so the question then is just, is it a part of national, what would we call that? Like,
National security?
National
Yeah.
security issue such that the United States should have a company that can build chips in the United States. And so that seems to be what's changed. It's like, well, if we're going to do this, and of course, those that listen to Ben Thompson, there you go. We already mentioned him right off the bat. He's been kind of calling for like, well, if the United States really wants, people to have a chip manufactured in the United States government's basically going to have to pay for it, subsidize it, and then, eventually convince some level of United States companies to actually do it. Because otherwise, no one's ever going to actually do it willingly. So that seems to be where we're stuck. I don't know, Matt, did I miss anything?
Well, I mean, no, I don't think you missed anything. I think this is, I think the hope here is this is like when Obama bailed out the General Motors, or was it Chevrolet? Whoever it was, right?
Car manufacturers, yeah.
Car manufacturing, right? The sector was down. It had, a bad thing. They propped it back up. They got them out of the ditch. They resold the shares at a profit later. That actually turned out fine. And I kind of agree. I think semiconductors are nationally important. Because, well, let's face it, everything runs on computers these days. So I can buy those angles. What I get a little squishy on is things like, well, didn't Biden have like the CHIPS Act that was supposed to help prop up, domestic production, and didn't they cancel that as soon as Trump got into office? So it's
Right,
like,
well-
wait, make up your mind. What are you doing here?
Well, I think that's a good way to think of it. It is kind of a make up your mind. So it's all of this is about, like, I guess TSMC, makes almost all the chips, at least the ones that we're talking about here. So there is kind of a thing, I guess, for the United States. And this is, the Ben Thompson talking point. It's like, well, if you let Intel limp along, you're kind of probably just wasting money. So if you really want to do it, you got to like really capitalize them so that they have enough money to build out manufacturing capabilities that are so good that companies would choose to build them, right? And so obviously here in the United States, that's sort of, the word socialism, people get freaked out about that. So that although, so it's the irony of ironies that, the Republican Party, usually the ones that are against this kind of stuff are sort of proposing it. But I don't know, maybe it is the right time. What do you think, Matt?
I mean, yeah, I think it is the right time. I think things get, called socialism all the time just to demonize the things you don't like. But there's so many examples of government interference in markets, pro, negative, either way. So it's like, you kind of need to just, I don't want to be like completely laissez-faire, but it's like, just quit demonizing it and be honest about what you're doing. because this happens in all sorts of sectors. Tax breaks for companies is socialism. Well, welcome to Texas.
Well, maybe we could say maybe you're our laissez-faire capitalism expert. I guess we could make the case otherwise.
Thank you. Finally, someone recognizes it.
We could just go with the right. It's like, listen, urgency and profit motivations are really the only things that a lot of companies respond to. So, like, I don't know, maybe we just have to like roll with it and be like, well, if something bad happens, we will all be motivated to fix it. Until then, it's like no one really wants to work on it, so we just roll with the risk. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, can't you like sell it to the Canadians or something? They'd probably be into it, and they're cool.
And then slap 20% tariffs on it.
Canadians, unlikely the Canadians are going to build any chips for us. I don't see that in the near future.
That would be sweet. That would be, maybe it's just could mend the relationship. We could be like, hey, look, why don't you take Intel, and we'll just pretend like none of that happened. It'll be cool. But yeah, I don't know. It does seem like yeah, like what is it just the cash that they would be given? I guess like I can't imagine that people from the government, it's not going to be like a PE firm where they're like, we're experts in turning things around, and they come and do that. So it's really just a big chunk of money for some equity, I guess, that you get. And then I guess on the Intel side, that means that like the car manufacturers, which I had completely forgotten about, but that's a good historic point. That means if Intel is successful, they can buy the government out of the relationship. I guess they can pay them back or something. But it does seem I don't know. It's also one of those things. Speaking of chaos monkeys, where I kind of think like, sure, let's do it.
Well, I mean, I think the alternative right now is Intel is probably on the path to going under. Like, we're not the first podcast to talk about this, and trust me, like the Oxide and Friends, they love talking about Intel and about why they use AMD, and but also like Brian Cantrell said long before he was hired, he was like, I think the only guy who would work would be Lip Bhutan, who's there now, right? Who like came in from the cold to like reinvigorate the company, and then of course like the old guard is like, no, not that guy. He'll disrupt things. It was like, disrupting things might be good considering where you currently are. You're headed down to the straight down, and the guy who's like, I got a plan to pull us out. Maybe he should be in charge. But of course, like there's interfering. You had Trump saying, I don't like this guy. He shouldn't be in charge. And it's like, okay, so you're gonna put back somebody who will steer it further into the ground faster, or just suck up as much money as possible. I think you have to give it a chance. But I don't know. Why aren't they investing in AMD also, or are they not American?
Well, but I think on the Intel thing, I think you hit on something there, because I know Oxide, they definitely talk about that. But I've been thinking a lot about like this phrase. Other people kind of came up with this sort of like, if you look at turn around a company, if someone said turn around a company, I think the board of directors has to kind of first decide, is it an execution issue? As in, we have the right strategy, we just don't have the right people that know how to execute the strategy, or is it actually a strategy issue? And I would say, it seems like for Intel, it's clearly to me a strategy issue, right? But it seems like Gelsinger and now the new CEO, whose name I'm going to say wrong, so I'm not going to say it.
Lip Bhutan.
Thank you. Are both proceeding and have been chartered by the board as this was an execution risk, right? But like, just keep like, they're not fundamentally making the change, right? Because like the fundamental change, like from the outside, go to your strategy work. We could just say it's like, you got to break this company up, right? You got to have really probably three things, right? Somebody that can, if you will, design chips. Someone can run the kind of Intel core architecture. I got to spin out all this AI stuff you're trying to do. Give it a chance. Let it run on its own. Maybe it works. Maybe it doesn't. And then if you want to be a foundry, a chip manufacturing company, you got to spin that out. Of course, that means like you're ripping. That's a whole new strategy for Intel. You're really kind of taking it down to the studs, and like gonna have to like rebuild all potentially three of the different companies together. But like like to me, it's like it's easy to me. It's like, well, that's the best chance, right? But
Yeah.
people don't want to like you don't want to
maybe one of the
know.
three will succeed.
I guess it's part of the software defined talk consulting. It's like, hey guys, this you have a strategy risk problem here, but you're treating it as an execution risk, right? It's almost like a doctor. It's like, hey, your problem here is high cholesterol, but you're treating this as a muscle strain. You know, like here's the solution. Do you want it or do you not want to? Is it just too much to face that fear? I don't know, Kute. What do strategy people do?
Now, from what you're saying, so if the drive for us, the people owning 10% of Intel, is that for national security reasons and commerce reasons, etc., for the stability of things, we need to own a chip foundry. Then you would follow your plan, right? You would be like, all we want is a chip foundry. All this other stuff, don't need it, right? Like we just want the ability to make chips. We got plenty of other American companies who design them and do the stuff. So you would break it up. And then so that seems okay, I guess. And but then the other thing that I've listened over the years to all the Intel, not all of it, much of the Intel commentary, and I still don't quite understand what's wrong. Like I guess people don't want to buy from it. Is that because they don't have what they want to buy? Or is it because they're incapable of building what they want to buy? Or is it because the prices are too high? Like what? And if
well, you got to go back a little history. I guess a little history. I go back in time. Essentially, Intel made famous the process of essentially, if you will, architecting chips and manufacturing them together, highly coupled. So basically, they used to have this thing called the copy exact. Intel would come up with a new manufacturing process designed around specifically producing the chips that they want, right? And that was extremely profitable for like most of the company's life, right? But that coupling, if you will, is its weakness. Is like, okay, people don't want as many Intel, chips because obviously the world's moved on to ARM and lower power chips, and Intel has not kept up. They don't have low power chips that compete, right? So that's problem one. And then just to finish that off, and then problem two is because they're so tied together, they don't have a generalized manufacturing capability like TSMC. Like you just come into them with a design, they're like, great. Yeah, we can build this for you and maybe even help you kind of decide like, well, if you make this change, we can help build a better way of manufacturing. There's a lot of collaboration, but TSMC does like they're just there to serve building. Whereas Intel, it's all coupled together. So if you go into Intel, you're like, I want you to do this. Intel's like, no, that's not what we do. We don't do that. So they're fundamentally trying to become like this whole other skill set, right?
So now the chip business is about custom chips. Someone comes to you and like you build them, you fab. I don't know the words.
Foundry. That's basically a foundry model. That's what it is. Come in with a design.
And so someone comes to you and they're like, we need this chip and we're going to need it in 2 years. I don't know what the lead time is.
Exactly.
And then
exactly right.
You have the process, the machinery, maybe even the culture that allows you to do that. Now,
absolutely.
So it's okay. So let's go back to whoever's running the strategy from the government side. They're probably like, okay, let's start that today. The best time to have a customized fab business is 2 years ago.
Yep.
Today is a good day too. So like, just do that. Yeah. And then, also conversely, 2 years ago, probably everyone was saying the same thing. 4 years ago, they were probably saying the same thing. Right. And so like that points to like, so what, like everyone knows it's everyone knows. So what is stopping them from doing it? And then also, you got to start doing it today, basically.
Yeah. It was a strategic failure years ago. Like years ago, AMD split out their foundry business and they went fabless. And, they struggled a bit. But then when all they did was focus on chips, their chips got better and the manufacturing advanced faster than their competition, which was Intel. Intel kind of missed some manufacturing technology windows of like, hey, this is the new stuff that is available through TSMC. Intel didn't get it fast enough or they were late to the game. And so it let AMD lap them in the x86 realm. And ARM was coming up, strictly fabless the entire time. And so they advanced rapidly. So Intel found itself with old foundries and slower chips. And then was it maybe compounded with the disruption's the wrong word for it, but it's sort of like, all right, so you're big company, you're a public company,
and everyone knows that you've got the wrong strategy in place, but you're still generating a lot of cash.
Exactly.
And you can't do you can't change anything, because then everyone's going to be like, good luck to you in 5 years. Meanwhile, I'd like my money back. I'll check back.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And
I mean,
and so basically at every board meeting, you're like, hey, everyone, I know that we're running into an iceberg, but we'll be sinking right now if we don't keep going towards the iceberg. So
well, you can say it, keep your analogy and say it slightly different. It's like, I see an iceberg in the future, but the executive teams and the board of directors will say, like, we're going to disembark this ship well before we get there. And we're making all this money because all the people that because really you go back 10 years, like, but all the people, it would have been crazy at the time to be like, hey, listen, you see all of this money you're making, it's actually all at risk. So it's like, I'm only going to work 5 more years. I'm gonna get all the bonuses, Brandon. I'm going to get everything done, and I'm going to retire, because that's, all, like, it's like Paul Otini. I can't remember all the names. There's lots of CEOs, right? So, but they did, like, at the time, most people would be like, they did a good job. They delivered shareholder return. But really, it's like, well, you ignored it. So then, kind of coming forward, it's like, well, Gelsinger, did do this. He was the white knight that said, like, hey, I'm going to come in. And I know we even talked about in the show. We go back. There's this long Verge interview with him where he basically laid out a very, very complicated discussion of what they were going to do. I remember we talked about it in the show, but it really just came down to, like, we're going to do all 3 things. We're going to build great chips. We're going to build a great, AI chip, and we're also going to become a world-class foundry. And at the time, I think on the show, we have to go back and look up maybe we all should get some getting right points. We're like, this seems complicated. I don't think you can do all of it, right? I think we were just like, and it's like, sure enough, like 2 years go by, and it's like, well, he gets fired because it's not working, right? It's like, it's not they didn't try. It's just sort of like, well, Gelsinger was building out the fab, but no one was using it, right? So he had no customers, and they were kind of late on the manufacturing stuff. And the new chips, like, they're still far away. They're not really working out. And they don't really have any AI chip that competes directly with NVIDIA. So after 2 years, now he would say, or 2 or 3 years, whatever. Now, Gelsinger would say, it's like, I told you it was going to take 5 years. And 3 years in, you're mad because it's not working, right? And that's when he got fired. So, so it is one of those things. So, and that's now we are with, like, Lip Bhutan, who is just, I think he's kind of doing the same thing. Like, I think this is back to it's like, until someone inserts themselves, and it's like, if anything, he's abandoning the foundry. He's like, that's never going to work. We're not going to do it. And I think that's why the U.S. is like, wait a minute, you're the only thing we even have that builds chips. Like, otherwise we have to start from scratch. So maybe that's the converse. So maybe you could really say, maybe this is great negotiating, right? They're the only ones left that even have the capabilities. Like, I'm not sure we want to do it. And everyone's like, well, whoa, wait a minute. What if we gave you money?
Right. So then, okay. So maybe to close it out, the premise of the U.S. government owning 10% is like, we got to have in our own soil the ability to make chips. Like, it just needs to exist. Like, there's probably a bunch of generals who are like, we got a lot of those 286s and missiles, right? And so, like, they want to make sure to keep making them or whatever. And the problem is, Intel cannot change its business in the fun world of capitalism, because all the investors will immediately exit while it's going through this rocky time.
Correct.
And then apparently we can assume no private equity firm wanted to buy them to like give them the, because that would be a classic thing a PE firm would do, is to be like, hey, we got to break you up, and like, we'll extract the value after that, and then it'll be fine, we hope. And then also, maybe before or after that, Google or OpenAI or Apple didn't want to buy them so that they could make their own chips. They were like, I'm good, right? Like, it's all fine. They probably didn't even want to buy chunks of them, Right.
Now, there have been rumors, right, that like parts of it, other strategic companies would like to buy parts, but then you get into the antitrust issue, right? So there's right. That gets it even more complicated.
And then to your point, what you've kind of arrived at, Brandon, is like, okay, so in order for this big company to transform, we got to have the investors not freak out, because they'll just like shut the whole thing down. So if we have the what do they call it, the full faith and credit implied by the government,
too big to fail, if you will.
Yeah, if the U.S. government is basically like, hey, your money's going to be fine, and like, if it's not going to be fine, it means something's wrong with the government. and we got bigger problems than you, right?
Yes.
Like, and so basically the government owns just whatever 10%. I don't know what you do with 10. I mean, that's a significant amount to own. And then all the investors are kind of like, all right, not all of them, but enough of them are like, sure, whatever, right? Like transform. And if you don't, I don't know, maybe something happens, but at least it removes this like
But I think, no, to finish that sentence, but if you don't, the government will probably keep funding you until you do. That's the idea, right? It's like it's like the car, to the car manufacturer.
Too big to fail.
If your cars aren't selling, we'll just keep funding it until your cars start to sell, right? That's kind of the analogy.
So then my follow-on question is like, so if Facebook had a really rough year, should we buy 10% of that too?
Probably not.
or like someone, I mean, because there's like certain companies in, what do they call it, the Magnificent Seven, that if they cratered over 12 months, it would be fucking cats and dogs, right? Like, if Apple like was just like lost tons of value, or Google did, and all the investors were exiting, like over a 6-12
but
none
of
period.
those, I don't think any of those would fall into the national, because it's like, okay, if Google exited, there's plenty of other search engines. Maybe we don't like them, but it would work. If Apple started we're not going to make iPhones anymore, that means this Android, and there'd be plenty of companies coming in with Android devices.
Huawei.
So it has to be you got to find something. You got to find like a unique situation.
You've got to have that security stability thing to it.
You got to have that, or you have such a large displacement of workers, or that industry has such a large group of lobbying that they convince people that there's going to be issues. I don't think any social media, I don't know, if you will, any type of services-based software company, because it's so competitive, right? I don't think anything would fall into that category today.
Yeah. So Amazon wouldn't be saved, even though Amazon has like a geographic physical presence.
Right. No,
like I'm sure Walmart,
right?
Walmart and Target, and everyone would be like, "Hey, no problem," right?
They'd be like, "Yeah, it's time to sign up for Walmart's, subscription." So,
well, yeah, that's good stuff. Okay, I think I've got an understanding now.
Well, I think we fixed it, so we can definitely move on.
As always, we'll send the bill.
Yeah, because we would like 10% of software-defined talk to be acquired by the government, though. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
To ensure we keep making such high-quality product.
Yes, definitely national security. I mean, we are for sure. We are a podcast that they're very worried about.
Well, I think we're into, I think, week 2 of the post Chat GPT 5 problem, and my question is, it feels like all the thought leaders are kind of in a malaise. Like they're writing all these pieces about like maybe it's not all it's cut up to be. Like what's up with this guy? There's even an Onion article about Sam Altman like holds a gun to his head about I forget what it was, but it was
dogs being classified as crustaceans.
There you go. That was it. So like I think what's the feel we're getting over there on the continental U.S. and over in Australia? Are people walking around like, I don't know about this AI stuff? What's going on?
Ooh. Well, I ran into not my first encounter, but just a reminder that like don't trust AI is like, I was talking to one of my mini tradies, and he's like, well, ChatGPT told me, and I was like, oh dear, that just like you're starting to hear like I Googled being replaced with like the AI told me this, and I just I didn't want to like argue with the guy. But like what it had told him was wrong. He was asking questions about like the software industry and investing, and I was just like, oh God, just don't go there. Like first of all,
told him to like buy Intel.
I like don't trust us, but also don't trust LLMs. I mean, the thing that I found, I guess, funny this week in the AI space was Microsoft announcing that they'd embedded Copilot into Excel, and then like in the fine print it said don't trust it with numbers.
Yeah. Well, I came across an article that I really liked. That was a friend of the show, I think Jamin Bell over at Venture Capitalist, and so his article this week was all about kind of the return of software, which is sort of kind of like don't really go anywhere. But he was talking about systems of record and really SaaS systems, because I think one of the ongoing discussions is like SaaS is dead, right? Like AI is going to replace all this stuff. And I think he articulated what I've been thinking. I've never really put it in the same words, but like, these systems of record, right? And I like this metaphor, like all these SaaS systems have like tentacles that go into like these organizations everywhere. And, every time I interact like with a new one, I'm always like, and I also kind of spend my time trying to think about like helping people migrate. And you think about like how complicated that is and like how hard it is to even understand what these systems do. And then here in the United States this week, it's sort of like first day of school. So like I'm actually interacting with like a new student information system and a new school, and again, not to call it out, like they're all kind of equally bad, but like when I went to the portal, it's like you kind of see like, what do you have? You have like these 4 big images, which just represent 4 different systems. Like one's for attendance, one's for grades, one's for the homework. And it's like to me, this is like the true AI test case. It's like, okay, we talk about how much, and I like this too, vibe coding and how much it assists with building new software. But at the same time, it's like, just in theory, we would all have these great SaaS-based systems going forward that wouldn't be all these like Salesforce and, expense management, all these weird kludgy systems that like have these old outdated interfaces and are really hard to use. And it's like, and in my mind, it's like, I don't know, like when I say to myself, like, when is AI going to fix all of that? I kind of feel like never, right? Kind of feel like the mainframe.
Yeah.
Like, when is the mainframe going to go away? When is ACH going to be processed here in the United States on within a few minutes? And it's like, I think the answer is probably never. And it's like, so it's like hard to keep that in, like, if you will, in your mind of like everyone being so optimistic about AI. Cause it's like, I don't see AI's not taking any of these systems. Go ahead, Matt.
The reason those systems persist, the reason those mainframes have been around 50 years now or whatever, is they're deterministic. They produce consistent results given the same inputs. You don't get that with LLMs. And LLMs can't explain why they gave you something. And if I give it, the same set of inputs 5 times, I'll get 5 different answers. And so that is terrifying to think about it in the context of government, record keeping, taxes, accounting, anything that is kind of the foundation of business and government is, I don't want it touching that. What I want is like, oh yeah, I can autocomplete you some, nice frilly sentences and, make you some graphics of people with webbed hands, but whatever. It's when you start trying to embed it into things that matter, things that, need to be accurate, it's terrible. And so, finding those lines of what can be terrible, what can be humanish and what should be mechanical. See, that's the problem with LLMs is they don't appear mechanical, or mechanical meaning like same inputs, same results. You just don't get that, which is why when Salesforce tells you these things, I'm like, oh God, what if it puts the wrong stuff in the wrong fields, and you end up giving the customer a 40% discount because the LLM did it, and you weren't watching every single thing. Now, I'm not saying humans are perfect. And definitely a lot of this stuff can be automated with LLMs, but when things matter, they need to be consistent, and that's what.
Well, I think you're getting to the agent side of this. Like that's been the pitch all along, right? MCP, that it would, if you will, kind of back to my student information system, like it would just show me a prompt, and behind the scenes, it would work with all these 4 different systems, and it would tell me like, yeah, like here's the attendance, here's the grades, here's all the stuff I want, but. Even before, like, I think you're kind of getting even like a little further ahead of where I'm at. I just even get to the point of like, I don't like, cause I think there's kind of been this implied idea that like AI is going to disrupt SaaS, which is really disrupting systems of record. Right. And I look at that and I'm like, I don't think so. I mean, it's almost like, back to our TAM conversation for last week. It's almost like I want to carve that out and be like, maybe AI can like make these systems slightly better in some ways, but the idea that they're going to replace these systems and that you wouldn't have to pay, a license for Salesforce or any of these other things. Like, I feel like we are very far from that. Like, it almost feels like outside of my lifetime, right? That you're going to be able to do. So, which is interesting, where you're just sort of like, well, if you kind of take that out, you're like, no, this doesn't really change the SaaS market much. It's like, that's a pretty big chunk of money that suddenly AI isn't attacking.
Well, and the realization from so much of this vibe coding that gets put into production is like, oh, it didn't cover this bug or this use case, and now I need to have a developer come and unwind this stuff because the LLM didn't capture this. It's like that is the scary thing. Is like these having worked on a SaaS and worked on SaaS's previously is like once you get into the code, it's nothing but edge cases, right? It's like, oh, the customer did this, so now I had to do that. The customer did this, then now I had to do that. And like you can try to YOLO that the first time, but as soon as it starts touching real money and real customer data, like it becomes a lot more painful. And then if you're giving it, obfuscated code that nobody understood in the first place, it's a house of cards.
Yeah.
And so is the idea, Brandon, that SaaS is going to be replaced because the customers can now write their own applications? Like what?
Well, I think too. I think one, it would be that, and also too, like in theory, right? AI could take these old legacy applications, right, and new solutions would be quickly developed that are much better because, to Matt's point, combining everything, because they can be built faster using AI. Because when you apply AI intelligence to it, you don't have to, if you will. A lot of people say like, user interface on demand, right? Like you're just using a chat bot and it just presents you what you need to see, right? It doesn't, you don't have to go through and build all those things. And if you will, it's just interacting and keeping up the systems of record. So, but I feel like all of that, like to me, it's like, I don't know. And maybe it's one of these things like we're almost force fitting it. Maybe AI is about to unlock a new thing that we don't know what it is. And that would be incredibly productivity, but it doesn't, like applying this to be like, oh, we're about to eliminate all SaaS and make it super cheap and everyone's going to have what they want. It doesn't. And I think, Kuja, you had a nice note in here that I thought was relevant, was like, yeah, it is good. Like the note you posted was about like, AI is good to actually go through and help you update the version of Java. That's the Amazon example, right? Like it is actually pretty good to be like, show me all the places where, the JDK needs to be changed, right? And it's pretty good at like generating the code. But like to Matt's point, it's almost like, it doesn't have to be deterministic. It kind of tells you all the things you need to do. Then you can go do them, or you can check that it did it right. But then you still return back to, you're like, okay, you did your work, AI, but I'm going back to my deterministic, slightly upgraded SaaS system, which is not trivial. Don't get me wrong. Upgrading the Java versions, it's not like it's not important. It just doesn't fundamentally change the app, right? It's just sort of like, it's like changing the oil on a car versus be like, you don't even need a car. Everything's just driverless now. It's like, no. We just made this one thing a little bit better, which is helpful. I don't want to discount it, but you still need a car. I'm still driving a car, right?
Yeah, and with that upgrading thing, like it is. We go out and talk with people about AI stuff, and of course AI is fun. But then we have really long conversations about just upgrading their Java version. Like that's like a much more. Painful is the wrong word, but it's a much more, if you'll pardon the word, impactful like change that most people in large organizations are suffering through. And it almost makes me think, well, not almost, but it pushes me towards that thought of, maybe, I guess we talked about this last week, but like maybe what AI does now is all it's going to do. And so we have to figure out how to fit that into people's workflows. Like basically, I think there's one thing that's different in my mind after talking about this. So if you got a lot of text, it's good at doing something with that, more or less. And if you want to generate text, it's good at doing that. But I think in you talking about deterministic stuff, Matt Ray, there's another good point when it comes to software is that it's really only good for one point in time. Like if you went, Brandon, and you asked it to make you an app that was better than your kid's school system, it would make an app. And then tomorrow, if you ask it to make an app, it would make a different app. And the next day it would make a different app. And then especially if you said like, now I need to change this app, so this feature does this, like I'm sure it's more or less good at it, but there's always the risk of it doing other stuff and like kind of messing around. And so that starts to make it not good at like a continuous replacement or this ability to just like write an app quickly. You have to kind of like pull it up from the ground. I don't know that you have a lot more experience doing code stuff than I do, Brandon. Is it, can you microscopically make things without affecting other stuff?
Well, but this is where it becomes like more back to more professional software development. Like, okay, you make the app, you get it right, you know, do all the right things, you put it in GitHub, and like, of course, you can use tools like Cursor to like have them go back, but they're going to go back and read all the app again, and then you can have them make an enhancement to it. So, but again, it's a much more traditional software development lifecycle. It's like you, an expert architect programmer, sort of just guiding it and watching, right? Versus like, oh, this thing, you know, it's just a chat bot, and I just go to in this case, I go to the student chat bot and I just start asking questions and it just figures it all out, right? This is like, you know, that part of it just, and it kind of comes back to like the thing that we always overlook is like, you know, all these SaaS systems, expense management, all of them, like they're brittle and they're arcane, but inside of them is so much intellectual property, so many weird edge cases that have been captured that we
Right.
don't even know about. That's why we can't move them. And the AI cannot figure that out. You can't just say to the AI, be like, go look at all this stuff, and you got to do it exactly the same. Because it doesn't even know all the weird things that are in there. It'll find some weird code to be like, oh, well, on, you know, on February 28th in a, you know, in a leap year, like it's actually not the end of the month. You got to do this other, you know, there's some weird code or something like that that's in there. And it's like, so I don't, so it kind of maybe it comes back to like, you know, we could all just be, and I guess this is just like every technology, all we can do is think about things we're currently doing and could it make it better until such time that like a new thing comes out, right? And we're like, oh, wait a minute. We're not worried about the old problems. It does this new thing better. And that's actually, and that may be what's going on here. It's just like, oh, people just want to point to SaaS because we spend a lot of money
Mm.
on it and people like it for code. But it's like, I feel like it's probably like a dead end. Like there's not,
Well,
you're not replacing these
yeah.
systems.
I'm not sure.
Maybe it's like the you know, like the put a physical keyboard on a phone thing, where you're just trying to like make a smaller laptop instead of like a brand new thing out of it, right? And we just don't really know the brand new thing yet. Or
I mean, I was gonna say, I think we need to just recognize the current use of AI or implementation of AI appears to be plateaued. You know, I mean, prove me wrong, please do, but I'm not going to trust it for things of record. And you know, it's essentially like everyone has an army of interns available to them now, and you know that can be really powerful. You know, interns can do a lot of damage, but uh, but do you trust them? You know, do you like, whoa, we have all these interns. Let's get rid of all the senior engineers and put, you know, because, and just hire like 5 times as many interns. Like nobody ever does that, right? You have companies that don't hire any interns. That's where we've gotten to. So I think, you know, AI stands for Army of Interns.
All right, but now, okay, we should train. Okay, someone from the Software Defined Talk Slack posted this interview. It's, I guess, it was on the podcast Plain English with Derek Thompson, and so he interviews Cal Newport. He's the guy that did what Thinking Slow. So he's done a lot of research into like thinking, how to think about it, and they had a whole this conversation about AI. And so it was, I thought it was pretty good actually. I thought there was like some different takes. Some of it is sort of like, and I think to distill this thing down, it's sort of like one way to look at it outside of all of this stuff we've been talking about is like, okay, people are potentially not reading and writing as much because you can get book summaries and you can have, if you will, the classic example, students, if you will, have term papers written. So in his research, though, he said, so that's bad. If people, and he basically makes the case that like reading rewires the brain for like systematic thinking, which becomes like a huge advantage for human beings. Okay. So just take that all as face value, read all his books. He talks about that. But the other thing he kind of found out was like when he actually did some research was that like, well, people really aren't, if you will, having it write long-term papers because they're incoherent. They just don't like, they don't make any sense. Like you can't just turn in like a 10-page term paper without reading it. At least that was the what he put
But they
forward there.
do. Yes, go ahead.
Well, no, but I think what he said is like they don't actually do it. This is what he said. He said this is what he found. He said what people end up doing though is they kind of end up using it as sort of just an ongoing conversation, right? They sort of like I'm thinking about writing about, you know, like Cote could, I don't know, Cote, in a second you can tell us how you write your newsletter, but some other person be like, I'm thinking about writing about, you know, whatever, VMware this week. And and then you put in an outline and it gives you some ideas. And then I get some ideas and I write a section and then a proofread. So he kind of talks about there's just this constant back and forth, right? And there's good and bad about that. So I think the good I took from that was, if you will, I don't know how else to say it. It's more fun to interact, to do things that way. And it's sort of, and what he talks about is it's sort of like the cognitive load, if you will, like the people, maybe if you're writing and you stop, it's because like your brain, like you're kind of stuck, right? And so he would say that like that's your brain actually doing the hard work to, if you will, create these connections that will eventually lead to good writing, for example. Or you could say it's like, well, or you just quit and you never do the paper, right? Or you stop doing the task. So so the idea though is like, well, like these systems, if you will, I kind of, and I've noticed this myself, right? It's like if it can keep you in flow state longer, right? Like you don't have the writer's block, right? Like I feel like you can like, it's giving you ideas and you're giving it some ideas. And it goes on to say, as kind of an aside to this, is that they did this pretty, I guess, kind of surprising results around coding. They gave a bunch of like experienced coders, you know, various problems, right? And they found that like the people that used AI actually took longer, right? They actually took them longer to do it. And there was a lot of, you know, theories about why. And so the idea though is like maybe, but people thought they had taken less time. And it's like, because it's more fun, right? So I guess this all leads to kind of this thing. Well, it's like, I don't know, like maybe interacting with AI in this way allows us to, if you will, produce things more because we stay in flow state longer, even though we're not training our brain as much. So I don't know, Kote, you must have some thoughts on this.
I think that sounds right. Yeah. I think the instead of I mean it's solved a lot of AI freak out problems in the sense of it's pretty obvious. Well, first of all, like I think you know, obviously cheating. If you're supposed to write something originally and you don't, then that's just cheating, which is bad. That's why it's called cheating. And so like I think there's another thing. This guy is his last name Alan Jacob. He's a professor at what's that school in Waco, Baylor. That for some reason I follow. I forget why, but he's has good stuff, and he published like this letter to his students, and you know, he doesn't really like AI. I know because I read his RSS feed, but he made a good point. He's like, hey, I'm doing it in reverse order. He's like, I'm a 60-year-old guy. I got shit to do. So like, I'm not really going to police you using AI, but you're really just hurting yourself if you don't do the work. That's the point of an education, right? And so like, it's kind of like he was like, this is all I'm going to say about it. Let's proceed. But I think what you described is what I've used it for is like pairing with something, like having kind of like a coach or a person just to kind of like keep doing things. Because it does, like, I actually had it generate a report today, or maybe it was yesterday, sometime recently, about like, so if you're doing platform engineering, how do you manage AI stuff? And what it generated was probably like a white paper that would be good enough to put on a vendor's website. Now, the problem was the content. What it was saying was fine, but the content post, you know, linked to like 3 different use cases that were like 2 years old. So like you would have to go through and like kind of like what it sounds like you want to do with parts of your house, Matt Ray. You'd have like the structure there and the layout, but you have to go through and be like, rip out that cable, rip out that 2-year-old Uber reference, and now let's stick in some Ethernet for like a reference that worked here. All right, now let's go over here. We got to replace the roof and put this roof on. So like at that point, like you have structure, and it kind of, as long as you don't make it do this, it confirms what your intuitions are about things, right? Like, you know, I don't know, write a paper about the FDR administration. You're probably like, you know, there's not a lot of new thoughts about it. Like there's some interesting reports you can do. So anyways, that was a terrible example, but I think having this little assistant, this little buddy that you just is kind of like always pushing you forward and like giving you little ideas, like that's very useful. It's good for that.
But it seems like to me that part is the part that seems like very much like what we do today. Like, you know, we've all worked together like at different times. Like I'm sure I've gone to you, Kote, and bothered you and be like, I'm thinking about this. We've talked about it, or you brought me something. We've talked about it. You gave me some ideas, or I gave you some ideas, and like, you know, you just kind of use that to keep going, right? Or like I've for sure,
Exactly.
I don't know how many times I've had someone like especially a comms person, be like, hey, can you read this email and check over the grammar and the sentence structure? Is this because it's going to go to a big group, right? Basically edit it, right? And then I mean, I've done that millions of times, right? And then that gets into a whole other thing. It's like, a good editor, like not only will they just do the copy editing, but they'll actually like, hey, you know what? Almost every time, but like actually you could say this 5 sentence thing in 2 sentences, right? And they'll rewrite it. And I'm always like, that was better. And I don't ever feel like bad about that. Like I feel like that's what we're that's good, right? And so the fact that you could do this all the time, and to me, I feel like this is good. Like I feel like this part is good. And then it is kind of back to what we said. Like now, a student that just doesn't read anything and just like turn something in has 100% lost any value of it. But I think a student interacting with it and like I wrote my 10 sentence paragraph. The AI helped me make it 5, and I refined it. And I was like, I don't know, like that to me is the absolute reason. And like to me, that's the reason to be optimistic, is it does seem like this will help us all be better at that, produce better content, right? Which is, I guess, the production function. So but I don't know, but I guess just to like throw in the final devil's advocate here, it was just I guess Cal Newport and others would just say, it's like, I don't know, like if we do less reading and we do less, if we do this kind of, if you will, I don't know what we call it, AI assisted writing, like maybe there is long term, like we're not like wiring our brains together in the most effective way. But I say this as someone that like doesn't like to actually read the books. I like to listen to the books. And then of course this podcast was somewhat ironic because they're doing this in a podcast format, right? And then you're like listening to it and it's really good. They're not, obviously they have written papers, but it's like, hey, if you're not, it'd be better to hear it than it is. If you're not going to read it, it's better to hear it. So maybe that's okay too.
Well, maybe we should include a link to another piece, which is an article about how back in the '80s when the Walkman was going to destroy society, and just isolating people and things like that. I mean, I think yeah, if probably reading books or like reading through your ears or your eyes makes you better. Like, and it's just a matter of kind of to your point, Brandon. Like, as long as you're getting like that's whatever that there are multiple ways probably to build up that good stuff in your brain, not just like reading a book. And
but you're as we kind of wrap here, I just kind of want your opinion. So I don't know, I in some ways I sometimes listen to this, like I want to represent, like, I don't know, the bad writers of America, the average content creators of America. It's like I don't think of myself as like a writer first, right? So I don't have any when someone's either helping me make my writing better or the AI is, like, I just feel joy. I'm just happy, right? But I feel like, and I feel like most people, just by definition, most people are average or below average writers. I were to do a little bell curve. So it's like, yeah. So why, okay, like maybe the Cal Newport, who's like literally comes out of a PhD of MIT thinking, right? Okay, maybe he doesn't need it. He could just write everything from scratch on his own and almost no help. But it's like the rest of the world, it feels like they don't want to write as much. They don't want to do. It's like, like these tools seem like they kind of raise the bar for everyone. So, my question, Kote, as the writer here, as the self-proclaimed, someone that writes a lot for, and not that you don't, Bob, but it's someone that produces a lot of writing for public consumption. Like what do you think? Do you feel like if I didn't edit this myself, like I've cheated my audience? Like, what are your thoughts?
No. I mean, I think it's a question of like where you put like the grit line, like because it's just a conversation of like, oh, it's not only this. I'm sure there's research, etc. But part of the sentiment is like you're not putting enough effort into it for it to be valuable, and it's kind of like, I don't build my own pipes so that I can flush a toilet. I don't like fix my own pipes so that I can flush a toilet.
Right. They did in my house.
Well, here in Europe, they've got like these like joke dollhouse plungers. So like, anyways, but like, I might plunge a toilet, but at a certain point, I'm just going to call someone. Right. And that doesn't like make paths in my brain decrepit. Right. It's just like, I'm not the one to do that. So using that extreme analogy, that crappy one, so to speak, like I agree with you, Brandon, right? Like if your goal is to communicate something through writing, it should be good. like it should do that job. And like if you, Brandon, need to like write something to someone to get something done, and your output is not as good, it doesn't get the outcome as well as like an output of something else that you helped. Of course you use the something else, right? Because you want to succeed. And so I don't know.
I have like a rant building up in me about the loss of experience and expertise, but maybe we save that for next time. But I think the problem is, yes, this does help everyone's writing, but there is a segment of people who are like willing to not augment, but they're willing to let it replace. And they're willing to just offload it all to AI and assume that it's doing a quality job, and then passing it off as their own work. And so what we'll end up with, we're already in this. Thanks to the Walkman, there are people who, they don't experience live music.
I was gonna say, but you're kidding on it. But doesn't that?
Yeah.
I guess that's the crux of this question. It's like it's almost like the cheating. It's like yes, cheating in school has always existed. First there was Socrates, then there was a student that was cheating to pass the Socrates lectures. It's like, I mean, it's been as old as time. So it's like this will never change, but there will always be someone who's like, I want to do the work. Like I'm generally
hopefully
intellectually interested, and I'm going to do the work. And it's like, that will always be the case. So and over time, we're just giving people more tools. Yes. Better tools to cheat, but there's also better tools to learn.
I agree. Yeah.
I think a policy that we need to have, and just in real life in the enterprise space, is it's a two-part policy. One, it's like you have to tell someone if you care if they're giving you original writing or not. Like, and if you care, you should probably explain why. But you should be upfront and be like, we don't want this has to be writing you have done. End of story. And then they'll be like, Brandon be like, can I get a copy editor? And they'll be like, yeah, you can get a copy editor. And they'll be like, can I use spell check? Yeah, you can use spell check. And then you're off to the races.
Yeah, exactly. That's exactly what I would do. Thank you. Go on.
Yes.
But and then the second part of the policy is that according to the answer to the first, we don't have any shame or care if something is written with AI or not. And I think this would revolutionize, as I've said many times, the corporate world, right? If everyone could basically, because nowadays my sense is in the corporate world, like we still value the genuineness of someone being a shitty writer and giving us their shitty writing, right? Versus like, I don't know. I mean, think across like years of town halls and all hands meetings that you've had. Probably a lot of those would have just been better generated through AI stuff with someone saying, I used AI to write this. And then of course I read over it and changed things that I thought would be better or worse. But it turns out this is a lot easier to read, right?
Like marriage vows. Yeah.
Sure. See, that might be a case where you're like, we should write this originally because our shittiness in doing it is a mark of
we'll shine through. For. Yeah. I mean, what I worry about is, as I'm fixing things all over the house, more than one of my children has asked me, where did you learn how to do this? And, yes. It's the hands-on experience that is lacking. And then I'm already hearing horror stories of people performing interviews where the person on the other side is trying to use LLMs to fake their way into a job.
Yeah. And that's definitely not good.
Yeah, and it was like, has anybody ever heard of this? And it just came out of the woodwork like it's a torrent of this happening already. So you're having people who get through college, cheating their way through. They cheat their way into jobs, and then it just continues along. It's kind of just terrifying for like the waterline.
But you can say it a different way. You can also say like, I'm the home improvement. You can be like, man, YouTube. Nothing has been better for learning how to do things.
That's great. Yeah.
And then I'm going to say the same thing too. So you could say this. You can be like, hey, man, there's a whole generation that has like learned how to do a whole bunch of stuff on YouTube that would have been hard for them to learn before. And to take your point, there's also there's going to be someone that took the interview that did the interview earnestly, that gets hired, that learned a lot of how to pass that interview by interacting with AIs during their college experience.
I don't disagree.
So you're going to have both, right? You're going to have a highly educated group that took advantage of it, and you're going to have some people that passed it. And I guess maybe where to leave it will be like, what if the person that faked their way into it actually turns out to be a good employee? That would almost be an indictment of the interview process, which is a whole nother podcast. But I just think that's
North Korean.
an interesting idea, right? It's an interesting idea.
It's like a Hudsucker proxy for that. Yeah, you're reminding me, Matt. We were moving a sofa the other day, and I had to, I was giving Cormac some direction on the contortions you put a sofa through to get through a doorway, and then make sure that your hand is placed here because otherwise you're gonna bash it on the door. And he didn't know any of this stuff. And I was thinking oh yeah, that's because my dad made me move a bunch of heavy shit when I was a kid all the fucking time. And so you just need firsthand experience of getting your hand bashed 3 or 4 times. And you're like, I know how to move a sofa.
And you're a better person for it, Kote.
Yeah. Now, I don't know if they cover that in YouTube. I should go look that up. How to move a sofa without hurting your hand.
I'm sure there's everything. It has to be out there.
Damn it. I thought I could have a new channel. We'll just call it sofa moving, like those people who mow lawns. Well, speaking of ways that society is either going to improve or completely melt down, depending on how it's used. Do we have any bureaucracy this week?
A few things. One, as always, if you like a sticker, just email your postal address to stickers@softwaredefinedtalk.com. Happy to send you a sticker anywhere in the world. Also, follow up from last week. We got another nice email about kolaches. Maybe I'll read it in the after show. It's absolutely fantastic. It sort of makes some analogies to VMware and AWS EC2. So always appreciate Jan giving us more feedback on that. There's also been some talk in the Software Defined Talk Slack, and I actually will bear this out. We actually had a little uptick. I guess breakfast pastries is a popular topic. I saw some uptick in previous downloads. There's been a request, and maybe we're going to go into biscuits next. I think there's been an accusation that America stole biscuits from several cultures. So we may have a session on that. We could also maybe do tacos. So don't worry, guys. We didn't hit it on today, but there's probably a chance we're going to be talking about that.
There's more food in our future.
There's plenty of that. And also, because we talked a lot about writing, there was actually a great, a tireless, endless debate that will never end. But I always enjoyed being involved in it on the Oxford comma, right? Like, are you for or against it? How does AI use it? There was even someone that had a very funny thing about someone learned how to optimize comma usage in their high school class to optimize their grade. Because various English teachers, I think, grade it differently. So if you're interested in very esoteric subjects like that, there was even one for Kote and I, something that if you're a close reader of the show notes, Kote and I have been subtly arguing over this for years. Do you put periods at the end of bullets? That's another one. It's another long one. We don't have time to go through that today, but you can just a little secret. If you read through the notes, where there are some bullet points have periods, some don't. I'll let you decide who wrote which. So that's in there as well. So that's all the news, Kote. Yeah, take it away.
Well, maybe we should start a Slack channel called Kolache Talk that is just not only about kolaches, but about this whole global cross-culture food situation. That we had a little bit of pudding talk. If you're into that would have been a good discussion. Well, speaking of bullet points that are properly formatted with a period at the end, there's several conferences coming up that Matt Ray and I will be at several of them. There's next week is going to be Spring One in Las Vegas, August 25th to 28th. Also explore formerly VMworld, which you may be more familiar with. There's also the Wiz Capture the Flag in Brisbane. What is that going to be, Matt? What kind of flag are you capturing?
It's it's a security thing where you try to solve the puzzle, how to get to a certain piece of data. And then, once you have gotten it, that's the flag, and it contains a message like,
kolaches are delicious.
Or kolaches are delicious. Yeah, whatever it may be. And that's how you identify that you have won.
I see. So so it's like a workshop hackathon sort of thing.
Yeah, and it's kind of social. Everyone's in a big room and asking their proctors work in the room and asking answering questions, and people use the tools and learn a bit at the same time. And Wiz likes them a lot. We got a bunch online, and there are lots of different types of security.
But now you have one in person.
A nice in-person one.
Well, and so now I don't want to tell the Wiz event people how they run their lives. But I'm guessing since it's Wiz, they're going to have the premium sandwiches, not like the shitty ones. There's going to be good sandwiches, organic beverages, maybe even like a local coffee place supplying the coffee. It's not going to be the kind of bargain basement stuff.
Yeah,
that you would expect from
they're not going
from an optimizing company.
Yeah, they're not going to cheap out, but I'm
high growth catering.
Well, I'm not going to say it's there's going to be a barista on site, but there's usually they don't skimp on the finer things.
Yeah. No. What's that guy's name? Salt Bay. He's not going to throw salt on your sandwiches for you. There's also there's several other conferences. I'm not going to go over them all. If you want to look at all of them, you can go to softwaredefinedtalk.com/534. There's a couple of SRE days, one in London, another one in Amsterdam in September and November. And then there's Cloud Foundry Day in Frankfurt, October 7th. And then I'm looking forward to being at AI for the Rest of Us, October 15th and 16th in London. And also our friend Whitney of the Software Defined Interviews podcast. She'll be there as well. Cool. So you should come check that one out. And I saw James Governor speaking there. So he's always fun. Now, speaking of things that are always fun, Brandon, what do you have to recommend this episode?
Well, it's the fall here, so everyone, I'm sure listening is very excited about football season. So there's like two or three of you out there. So in preparation for watching all this football, I'm watching on Netflix America's Team. That's the Cowboys in America. Generally considered the most popular team in America. That can be debated, I guess. I'm watching a recap of their a documentary, if you will, about how they won a lot of games in the 90s. It's called The Gambler and His Cowboys. So the gambler being Jerry Jones, Cowboys being the team. So I guess my pitch is if you're, like me, it's like the Cowboys, it's fun to just relive the 90s and watch all this. But if you're not a sports fan, I think what you can take from it is like another management lesson that we seem to learn all the time. So I would categorize it like this. Jerry Jones made two very big bets in the 90s. He, if you will, picked an oil well that he was not sure it had any oil, spent $800,000 and ended up making $100 million. He took that money, bought the Cowboys, and he hired Jimmy Johnson. So he made these two at the time, very bold picks, and he went on to win some Super Bowls. And if listening to his interviews, I was going to say, and I think this is a great example of like, making two good decisions like very close together in your life can almost be debilitating because as Matt has already alluded to, it has now been 30 plus years. Cowboys have not won a Super Bowl. In fact, they haven't even been to the championship game in that entire period of time. And if you're kind of watching him, you can kind of see him just applying the same logic and risk taking where it did work for the last 30 years and having, if you will, no Super Bowls to do that. So I think a lot of that, of course, that's another way to say the halo effect, but it's another kind of, if you will, business takeaways. It's like, if you can just make two good decisions in your life, yes, you can be very successful, but it may also hinder your ability to see clearly for the rest of your life. And that's what I think this documentary is actually showing you. So if you want to watch all that play out and hear all the fun stories and watch a bunch of crazy football players do crazy things, that's why you should watch this documentary.
Now, is there, you used to be up on all of the cognitive biases, the halo effect. We haven't mentioned that book in a long time, Brandon. But is there some kind of well-known condition where early phenomenal success actually becomes damaging because you don't feel like you need to have enough grit in doing things? Like you're already a 100 millionaire, so just like whatever, like you're fine. You don't have to like try things out more.
Well, I think it does, it just reinforces like what was maybe like I don't know I'm sure there is a word for it, but it's sort of like, it's almost like a 50-50 kind of thing, right? Like you make a 50-50 bet twice in a row and you win, and it is this halo effect. You start to think the reason that happened, instead of it just being a statistically unlikely event, right? It becomes like, you're like, no. I did this, right? You start to, if you will, attribute that success to yourself, right? That you did this versus like looking at it like, oh, I just statistically got lucky, right? I made two 50-50 bets. So, really only 1 out of 4 times would both of them hit, right? So, and then that cascades. If you have enough success, right, then you just always believe that like, well, no, I know I know that the next time I draft a quarterback, instead of it being 50-50, I have the knowledge to do it. And you can never really detach yourself. And I think and you probably get to the point that like you don't have to be surrounded by anyone that actually tells you anything contrary, right? And I think this is another thing I think that we see so many times. It's like everyone will say, anyone that's successful will say something like, I need people around me to challenge that. But it's like, no human being wants people to challenge their ideas all the time, especially like none of us
Sounds
do,
like a lot
right?
of work.
And the only reason that most of us do is like we don't have overwhelming money and success. That's what does it, right? It's like most people listening to this podcast don't have that. You have plenty of people that can check you because you don't have, if you will, the force field you can put up. But if you had the force field, I think this is a human condition. If you could live in a world where no one disagreed with you, you probably would. And it has lots of downsides, but everyone wants to. So if you will, we're all lucky we're not as successful because we have plenty of people in our lives that will tell us when we're doing something wrong.
I think the other lesson learned is start with $800,000. That's
Well, that's another like little hidden secret. He's like, I bet it all. It's like you didn't really. You had a lot to bet, and
You had a lot to bet already.
And that's another startup thing. People are like, this is the last dollar. Otherwise, I was going to have to go back and live with my parents in a great, beautiful suburban home, and maybe work my way up and get just a regular job.
I'm going to fall back on my Harvard education.
As I say, it's always the thing that's never talked about. It's like, and me included. Listen, I'm from the same demographic. I'm just saying, it's not like, listen, there's like you had a high floor. There's like usually a high floor. When people said they bet it all, there was a high floor behind them. So that's another funny story, statement.
How about yourself, Matt Ray? You got a funny story for us? How's your floor looking?
So my pick this week is relatively practical. Moving into this house, we had to put in some closets, empty changing rooms with no closets. So we had to fill them out. After the third trip to IKEA, I was like, screw this nonsense. Don't go to IKEA. Order everything for delivery. And because you're spending so much money at IKEA and you're using the family thing, the delivery starts to almost pay for itself, and you will save so much time. Just use IKEA delivery if you're doing anything, if you value your time. That's my pick. Don't go in there. It's a trap.
It's a trap. Well, I have my two recommendations are Patagonia related. Speaking of starting with $800,000, and the first one is I get told frequently that I need to stop wearing swim trunks all the time when it's hot. That maybe it's too aspirational or something. So I wanted to get some shorts that had the same comfort to them and lightness. And so I looked over at Patagonia and I got these ones that are called Nomad volleyball shorts, and they fit my criteria, and they even when I took them to the commentator did not realize that they were like beach shorts, and they said these are good looking shorts. So
I've got some like that. I've got some Quicksilver amphibious shorts that they look kind of nice, but they're actually like kind of beachy.
My only complaint is I really like to have a fifth pocket, so I can put my AirPods in it. But whatever, it doesn't have that, and but it does have a zipper pocket on the back. So when you have in your mind that you might jump into the canal one day wearing these shorts, you still have the zipper, so you can put all your shit back there and not have it. Now, my second one, while I was there, I checked out the I don't know what they call it, Terravia tote pack. That one that you can fold up into a little tiny pouch, and they've got a new model out since 6-7 years ago when I bought one, and it's much improved. They've moved the vertical zipper to horizontal. It has higher pockets on the side to hold the bottle. It's a little bigger, but here's a mystery for some people. If you look at this, it actually inside it has these two straps that I don't know what are those clips on backpacks that they click when you put them together? So it's got two straps at the top that click together. And I asked two people in the store what these are for. And they both looked at them and they said, I don't know. So there's some extraneous backpack straps trying to do something inside the Patagonia bag.
Oh, we're going to YouTube that. There's got to be somewhere. Someone's answered that question.
But anyways, I was told by the commentator on my wearing swim trunks that this commentator loved this bag, and they were like, we should get one of these for everyone, and whenever we go on a trip, we should all just take one of these. So I bought a second one, and they were very pleased with this purchase. It's a good bag. It's good stuff. So speaking of things that are good stuff, maybe not a good bag. I don't know. But you've listened to another episode of Software Defined Talk. This is episode 534. So if you want to see show notes to everything that we mentioned, things that we did in those conferences I skipped over, click on a link to see what these what this bag looks like. Maybe tell us what the straps do. You can go to softwaredefinedtalk.com/534. Also, we have a Slack channel that we mentioned several times. You should join that. There's fun stuff going on there. And now we'll let you get back to the fun stuff going on in your life. Thanks for listening. Bye-bye.
Bye.
All right, good as always. Cote, you have to definitely put a link to this bag in the show notes. People are going to want.
I'm putting it in there right now.
That's going to be fantastic. All right, well, listen. While we can't let this episode end without some kolache, so I'll partially read the explanation of the two types of kolache in Cote. I think people really want. Several people commented on how much passion you brought for this, so maybe you can. Tell us if you think these are a good classification.
Okay, good. I saw this at the bottom, but I stopped myself from reading it. So
all right, so here it is from Jan. So I'll start out. He says, let me explain the local Czech kolache classification. Type A kolache, the cloud native pastry. Round, consistent, and always available at your local bakery. Available in many sizes and toppings, fruit, poppy seed, or sweet cheese. Think of these like AWS EC2 instances. Easy to consume, highly scalable, and with the same look and feel no matter which bakery you walk into. Type B kolache, the on-prem home edition. Square, irregular, and baked when grandma decides the fruit basket is getting out of hand. Contexts are flexible. Bruised plums, leftover cherries, or whatever she negotiated for half price at the village market. This is basically VMware on-prem. Unique configurations, layers upon layers of homemade patches, deeply personal, tuned to your family's exact needs, and with flavors you simply can't buy off the shelf. So what do you think, Cote? What do you think? Do you like that? Is that does that analogy work in your kolache?
I think that's good. You know, you've got those deep tendrils, those tentacles into your family history data, and you know, you're working with what you have. You're paying attention to costs here and there. You don't want things getting out of control, and you know, there's no waste. And you appreciate you can't replace grandma like until she dies, and then maybe you'll not know how to do that, but you'll be like, where was she? I still are those recipes left over?
I like it. All right. Well, here to finish it off here, we'll give Jan the last word. So he says, so dear software defined podcasters, the next time you're planning your tech pilgrimage, forget the data centers of Austin, Amsterdam, or Sydney. Come to Czech, where we are pivoting from beer fueled tourism to kolache driven GDP growth. Yours in pastry governance, Jan.
Yeah, I think
so there you have it.
Good update.
The final word on kolaches. All right. Well, it's great seeing Michael in the chat. Glad you're hanging out with us today. We'll record probably 1 hour later next week. So hopefully we see more of you in the stream. And of course, we appreciate all of you watching online on YouTube as well. With that, we will talk to you next time.
Bye. Wow.